All right, chapters 6 and 7 of the book Night. Just discuss these a little bit. So, at the end of the last chapter, again, what we had happening was Eliezer and his father and everybody in the camp that they were at Buna is being evacuated and moved out as part of, again, the war and it coming to the end here. This is again 1945, and the Russian army has now pushed into Poland. So, this chapter starts out with Eliezer and all the Jews being forced to march. Okay, so they're being forced to leave the camp and they're going to march to someplace they don't even know. Okay, and so this was part of one of the things that happened in the Holocaust. It was called the death marches, where the Nazis were basically forcing Jews to march and walk and run for long periods of time. And as they're going through this, Eliezer's going to talk about this, that these people he are with, many of them are going to die. I mean, they're just going to die from sheer exhaustion, the fact that they haven't eaten adequate diet in years, or water and all these things, or they're unhealthy. They're going to die during these death marches. And that was one of the things, kind of one of these last forms of torture that the Nazis did to these people. You know, a lot of times people question, well, why didn't they just shoot them, you know, and just get it over with? Well, the Nazis, I mean, well, there's a couple reasons. One is they wanted to save ammunition for the war, but the other one was they wanted to torture the Jews. And so he discusses that and how, you know, as they keep pushing forward, he's having to continually help his father, keep his father alive as they push along through this march. Okay. Eventually what's going to happen is they're going to get to like a barn, a shed, and he's going to discuss that and how cold it was. They were allowed to sit down and things like that. And one of the things he was concerned about is going to sleep, because he saw people around him when they would go to sleep, they didn't wake up. And so with his own father, he's going to be, you know, watching over him as his father sleeps. And Eliezer, you know, is really going to try to stay awake as long as possible, because he understands. I mean, if he goes to sleep, his father's probably going to die. And so, you know, again, they continue to have to do this march and they continue moving on. Eventually, again, they go through this a few more days. It's the winter, it's snowing, it's cold out, people are freezing. And so they end up falling down in this large barn and crushing everybody. And so, you know, this is, again, one of these things that he experiences where he's going to be unable to get up and be unable to help his father at this point. And so they do survive this part of it. And eventually they end up at another place called Gleiwitz, and they're going to be there for 3 days with no food, no water, kind of locked in this like barn. And so he, you know, describes how, you know, they could hear gunfire. The war was getting closer to them. And so that's kind of where we're at. But then in the next part of this chapter, or the next kind of chapter here, what's going to happen is Eliezer and his father eventually are going to be loaded up onto like a cart, a wagon, and they're going to be going along, and they keep, you know, as people are dying all around them, they'll be kind of throwing them off. And at one point, his own father, they thought he was dead, and they try to throw his father off of this cart. And so luckily he was able to kind of resuscitate his father enough so that he was not thrown off. And so, yeah, they're, you know, they just keep having to go through these selections and just surrounded by death at this point. One of the themes of this entire book that he really gets into is kind of this idea of dehumanization, and how as they're treated unhuman, they start to act like animals. And so that was part of it, you know, he discussed, you know, as they threw a loaf of bread onto this cart, all the men on the cart started like fighting and like basically killing each other over this bread. And so that process has been going on for a long time, that they they had been dehumanized, sorry, for such a long time that then they start to act in those ways. They've been around cruelty, they've been around torture, they've seen death constantly, that they almost don't even view their lives the same way. And so that's kind of where we are at this point. We'll leave it. There's really only 2 short sections left, and so that'll be kind of what we finish up in the next week, and we'll be wrapping up with this whole unit on the Holocaust. So keep reading, keep doing your work, and we'll see you guys later.